Hi, everybody. Dr. Laura Foster here. So I'm just pulling up all the participants. So just if you wouldn't mind, just give me a moment here. And if you could do me a giant favor and just let me know that you can see me and hear me. And give me a wave. I want to know who's going to be on the webinar tonight, who's going to be listening in, maybe where you're contacting me from, because we have a ton of information to go over tonight. And I want to make sure that we are actually meeting all of your needs, talking about all the things you want to hear about, and I want to deliver as much as possible. All right, so, hey, Mary. Aw, that's so awesome. Okay, awesome. So I can just see that the last few people are sort of filtering in. So I want you to know, hi, JP. I want you to know that at any time you can ask me questions, and I will do my very, very best to be able to answer them. And if I don't get to them, I will get back to them, and I will make sure that I address these in other things that we're doing. So tonight is a big one. This is the sugar dilemma, and the sugar dilemma has really come to fruition because I've been leading sugar detoxes for the last few years. I've been a chiropractor for the last 23 years, and this was initially a program that I actually just brought to my practice members. I thought, you know, if I could do a sugar detox that would allow practice members to start to connect into the idea of cultivating a low sugar, clean eating lifestyle, that would make an amazing difference in their overall level of health and well-being. And as a result of it being so successful, I started bringing it to the public. So tonight, we aren't doing the detox, but tonight I want to share with you all the information, the most current information, and really much more of the reality of what's going on with sugar. Because the biggest thing I realize is that most people don't think that they actually consume this much sugar. And I'm going to tell you why it's not necessarily your fault, but I'm going to trigger you into how we can turn this around. So before we get going on this too far, let me just say, hi everybody, that my name is Dr. Laura Foster if you're just joining in now. And there's a few things that always happen when we do a webinar. It's either on my end, it's either in the internet world, or it's on your end. And what I want to say is if I cut out, if you're having problems hearing me, if you can't see me, and for some reason it's just not working for you, you know what? Don't stress. Don't worry about it. Just hop off. You can always try hopping back in with the same link, seeing if anything's changed, or just get off the whole thing. And then tomorrow what you can do is you can go ahead, open up your email inbox in the morning, and you will see the entire play. Okay, so the replay will be in your inbox in the morning, so don't stress about it. If for some reason you lose contact with me, I'll do my best to hop right back on, okay? But I've done everything in my power to minimize that. My teenagers have been warned to not be using too much bandwidth tonight. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. If you could see, I know you can kind of see what's back there, but if you could see what's in here, you would see that I have a fair bit of information to go over tonight. Tonight, we're going to talk about a lot of things, but primarily, we're going to be talking about the reality of sugar in our lives. We're going to have a bit of a deep dive into what sugar's really doing for us. We're going to have a reality check. And maybe the way I would say we're going to have a reality check is we're going to become very comfortable or maybe uncomfortable with the truth about the role that sugar is actually playing in our lives. I'm going to give you some stats. I don't like to deep dive into stats, but they tell us a little bit about what's going on. And more importantly, I want to increase your awareness to the idea of hidden sugar. So this is an industry secret, not so secret to me. It's not going to be a secret to you, but there are a number of reasons why food manufacturers are very invested in trying to make sure that we put as much sugar into products. It definitely is payback to them on their bottom line, but it comes at a cost to us. So we're going to increase our awareness. We're going to get clear on how much is too much so that we know what we're aiming for. And more importantly, we're going to know how to accurately count the amount of sugar grams that we're having in our diet in a way that's not paralyzing for us. Okay, this is important. I'm not going to leave you without at least sharing some of my you know, quick start strategies, things that I have learned have made a big difference for people, where to start, what to focus on when you're cleaning up your diet and cultivating a low sugar lifestyle. And I'm also going to tell you about how you can smash sugar cravings, because I'm telling you, sugar withdrawal is real. So that's what we're doing. Finally, at the end of the webinar tonight, I'm going to talk next steps for you. I have a couple offers. I'm opening up the registration for my upcoming 6-week, 40-day online sugar detox that starts on October 24th. I want to tell you about that. I also have a free supported sugar challenge that's coming up, and I'm going to give you access and information to that, okay? So I'm going to end off the evening with that. So if you're ready, I would say make sure you have some water. I'm going to take a little drink. Maybe a pen and paper, because we're going to go ahead and talk about sugar. All right, so are these lights bugging you right here? I will do my best. I know it's not the best room for me to do it. Okay, first thing. So here's the reality. This is from a Maclean's article, and these reflect 2011 stats. So the average Canadian, so I'm telling you about Canadians because I know a lot of times we think Americans have a different diet than us, but the average Canadian adult is consuming 27 teaspoons of sugar per day, 27. Now, it's important for you to know that that is 3 times the level that would be recommended to you in my detox, but also recommended to you for normal physiology. So we're getting 110 grams. That's the average Canadian adult. So here's the thing, an average teenage boy, 42, so just really listen to this for a second. The average Canadian boy is consuming 42 teaspoons of sugar a day. That is 171 grams of sugar. That is a massive, massive amount. That is 5 times the allowable and recommended amount for normal physiology and health and healing. Now, more important than that, I think, is to recognize that actually the danger is in the 9 to 13-year-olds. 9 to 13-year-old Canadian children right now are consuming, on average, 38 teaspoons of sugar per day. So if you and I are consuming 27 grams of sugar a day, or the average adult, the ones that are most at risk are children. And to say that I understand whenever I think of, teenage boys and so on, I know I have a 16 and 17-year-old teenage boys, and I recognize that I don't get to control everything that goes in their mouth, in their pockets, on their plate, in front of them. I'm not always the one that's buying or giving them the food anymore, unfortunately. But here's the thing, we do completely feed our children who are 9 to 13 years old. So when I see that there's 38 teaspoons of sugar in their diet in a day, which is 5 times the allowable amount, I know that we need to make some changes. And I don't say that to shame anyone. I really don't. I know that you're not sitting there feeding them cookies and candies and so on, or at least not as a primary food source. It comes back to that hidden sugar. So today, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the hidden sugar. So let me just tell you, if you thought that the trend was changing, it's not changing. I'm going to show you something, and it's pretty easy to see, but this is the trend. This is the trend for sugar consumption over the years. And I bet you would probably know that already, because when I do sugar education for anybody, the first thing everybody says is there's sugar in everything. Almost like a default, like there's sugar in everything and what am I supposed to do about it? Well, there's lots you can do about it, but 85% of all sugar calories that go in most people's mouths are in the form of beverages. So even, just even if at the end of this evening, you were able to start to decipher the beverages, the drinks the way you hydrate yourself, and you got that down into a really healthy level, it would make a significant difference for you. And if we were more aware about the choices that we make, even for our children in that 9 to 13-year-old bracket, and even the ones, of course, that are younger than that, that, of course, too, is going to decrease the sugar load considerably. It's the milk, it's the pop, it's actually the things like Gatorade, vitamin water, smoothies that are well-intentioned but full of maybe all the wrong things, fruit juices, unsweetened or sweetened, stocked full of sugar. Let's just say that. So the biggest danger is probably things like Starbucks drinks and, Tim Hortons drinks and all of those things that have like 80, 90, 100 grams of sugar. It is shocking and it's completely paralyzing. That is the number one place where we are getting our sugar. The number two place, and I will tell you why it's important, is fruit. So yes, I know there are lots of positives to fruit. Of course, there's minerals and there's vitamins and there's fiber in fruit, but also recognize that if we are not aware and not conscious to how much fruit that we're consuming, and I'm going to educate you a little bit about the specialness really of fruit, then it can become a big problem. So number one, it's coming in the form of our drinks. Number two, the sugar consumption we're consuming is coming in the form of actually our fruit. Hello, Audrey. That's my sister. Number three, sauces, condiments, salad dressings. That's where it's hidden. Those are the things that we need to be looking at, especially things like ketchup and so on. The number four source, breads, pastas, cakes, grains. It's all that stuff, not cakes. Pasta, all of that, everything to do with crackers, breads, pizza dough, those kinds of things. So you can look at a package and it may actually show that it doesn't have sugar in the ingredients. But the thing about a lot of those bread and grain products is they turn into sugar like that in the human body. So they may be full of sugar, but it just may be that they break down into sugar really rapidly. And number five, the fifth place, the lowest of all this list of where we actually are getting our sugar is in the places we think we're getting our sugar, which is in the cakes and the confectionaries and so on. So is it important? Do we watch our sugar intake? Here's the difference. When we eat cakes and when we drink pop and when we have cookies, we know we're having sugar, don't we? We're really, really aware. But what we aren't realizing is that when we have apple juice or when we're having a glass of milk or when we're having, 3 pieces or 4 pieces or 5 pieces of fruit, or we're making a really, really rich fruit smoothie in the morning, that might be the place that's actually overloading our actual sugar grams. And we'll talk about it. What's the difference between natural and unnatural sugar and cane sugar and all those kinds of things. So that's the awareness piece around this. And more importantly, and I really want you to know this, is what is the cost of all this? What is the cost of having so much sugar in our diet? Now, I'm going to provide as much of a foundational understanding today than I probably ever done in a webinar before. And I think it's important. So this is the part where I want you to be a little bit patient with me, because I think it's important to understand maybe the foundational side, the physiologic side of actually what sugar is doing for us. So a lot of us can say, I understand that sugar is creating diabetes and that sugar leads to obesity and sugar does not help with mental well-being and all those kinds of things. But do we really understand why sugar is doing that? Because if we understood why sugar is doing that, we would have a greater connection to why it's so important to reduce sugar in our diet. So this is the part where I want you to understand. And if you just need to sit back and chill out and listen to me, by all means, please do. So let's talk about what happens when we ingest sugar. When we ingest sugar, there's multiple things that happen all the time. And it also depends on what kind of sugar we're consuming. But let's just say we're consuming regular old sugar, glucose, sucrose, those kinds of things that we do on any given day. To our body, when we consume sugar, in our small intestine, enzymes break down the sugar and it breaks down into glucose. Glucose being that primary form of sugar that passes into the bloodstream out of our small intestine. Once sugar is in our bloodstream, of course, the pancreas notices that, and in the beta cells of the pancreas will secrete insulin. Insulin releases from the pancreas and it allows our body to uptake sugar out of our bloodstream to give to the cells. We require that. In order for our body to be able to utilize that form of energy, we require insulin to be there. So once we do that, then that sugar or that energy is available for the cells. Now, if we have too much sugar or we have too many sugar stores or whatnot, what happens is it immediately gets stored as fat. That's what happens. So that's your stored form of energy. And the problem that happens over time is if we keep consuming too much sugar over and over and over again, is we start to not only reduce our amount of insulin, but we also become resistant to the insulin, meaning that even if the insulin's there, it's not doing its job. And that's what diabetes is. Type 2 diabetes is when we start to become resistant to the insulin. And that's a problem, of course. We all know that diabetes is a huge issue. 1 in 3 people in Canada are either diabetic or tipping the scales at being pre-diabetic. It is a gigantic issue. There are 10 million Canadians right now that are walking around either in a diagnosed diabetic state, an undiagnosed diabetic state, or a pre-diabetic state. That is huge. So not only is it important to recognize that type 2 diabetes is completely preventable, it is incredibly manageable, and it's actually reversible. And the information that I'm teaching you tonight, and probably more importantly if you're diabetic, the information I teach you in my 40-day online detox is the kind of thing that can change everything for you. So I want you to just be really conscious and aware of that. So that's what happens when you consume sugar in the body. So when we consume sugar, there's a whole nother cascade of things that's happening at the level of the brain. So when we have sugar in our body and it goes into the bloodstream and all those things that we just talked about just happens, the brain automatically senses it. And in response to that sugar, what happens is it starts to release 2 key chemicals, dopamine and serotonin. And both of those chemicals will boost your mood. So when you have sugar, you get a burst of happy. You think you just like sugar, but what's happening is at the level of the brain, in the reward center of the brain, we're actually lighting up, right? Very, very similar to how a drug addict will light up in response to things like cocaine. The exact same part of the brain lights up in response to sugar. And this is where that addictive quality comes from sugar. The serotonin and the dopamine get released, you get a burst of feel good, and what happens is that's the reward. Now, when sugar starts to decrease, like any addiction, the craving starts to build, and you are now jonesying to have another hit of serotonin and dopamine as a result of having sugar. That is why people find that, you know, they jonesy for sugar, they want sugar, they want sugar. So we see that a lot in children, don't we? Where we're like, my goodness, my kid seems addicted to sugar. It feels different in an adult. It's the exact same thing. Sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine. And I'm sure most of you don't know what cocaine addiction feels like, hopefully. But the point being is that hard wiring in the brain is no joke. That is an actual feedback loop that your body is working with and working for at all costs. So you think you like sugar, but the reality is you like sugar. Your body is actually addicted to it. And the more that you eat, your tolerance increases, the more you need to eat to get that shot of serotonin and dopamine. So really a big part of what I'm going to be talking about tonight is recognizing how addictive sugar really is. And this sugar addiction that we're talking about, especially vulnerable for children. Now, the other part of it is that our brains actually use sugar on some level as a form of energy. And people will say that to me all the time. Well, don't I need sugar for my brain? Yeah, adequate levels of sugar for your brain are exactly what your brain needs. But none of us, many of us, most of us are not actually. We're having too much sugar. So the minute you have too much sugar and continue to have too much sugar in your body, now these levels of glucose actually become toxic to the brain. It increases our susceptibility and our incidence of depression and anxiety. This is where you see the connection to issues with attention and focus problems. People who have had concussion and post-concussive syndrome, sugar can be one of the most toxic things to their brain health. So if you have had a concussion, if you're susceptible to depression, if you have depression, if you struggle with anxiety, or you or your children have problems with attention or focus, this is the thing you need to focus on, because this kind of the large amounts of sugar that we're having in society right now is the thing that's becoming toxic for the brain. And this is the very reason why we're now starting to call Alzheimer's and dementia type 3 diabetes. Not me, we in research. So it's something you're going to hear about more and more. And I think the good thing is that it's very doable. It's actually very doable with the right information and strategy, and sometimes support, depending on who you are, to be able to scale back that amount of sugar that you're having in your diet and your lifestyle, both for you and for your children, and start to take your brain out of that risk and start to create a platform that your body can function properly so that you're not the 1 in 3 that is paving its way towards diabetes. All right, so that's something to be aware of. Obviously, this is a big reason. These are the reasons why so many people are actually becoming more interested in what is the issue around sugar, is they're starting to be aware of how much sugar is in everything. So I also want to talk about the very special case of fructose. Now, fructose is very cheap sugar. It is made actually, it is a primary form of sugar that you find in high fructose corn syrup. That is the cheap sugar. So high fructose corn syrup is something that is a special kind of sweetening, and we are finding it in everything. So 25 years ago, the amount of high fructose corn syrup in our diet was not nearly as much as it is now. The second most common place where you're going to get fructose is in the form of fruit. I want to tell you what's special about fructose. This will help you understand why it's important to be at least aware of how much fruit that you're intaking in a day, a week, a month, a year, but also being really savvy about the kind of sugar that you put in your body. So you know how we talked about how when you take in sugar, I was just talking about glucose, sucrose, galactose, the other forms of sugar, is when you intake that kind, of course, it breaks down and the enzymes in the small intestine allow it to pass into the bloodstream at that level. That isn't what happens with fructose. Fructose is different. It is metabolized in the liver. And that's really, really important because when it's metabolized in the liver, it behaves differently. And we use our liver for so many primary sources. It makes the proper amounts of cholesterol. It helps us detoxify things. There's a number of hormones that are made in the liver. And when we have too much fructose in our diet, which is happening all the time because of the levels of high fructose corn syrup in food production, then we are increasing our incidence of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. I have children in my practice who are showing up with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And of course, what happens is when we have too much of it, that sugar is turning into fat and it's actually impairing and forming around the liver. And that's where the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is coming into play. This is also a lot of the reasons why we're seeing increased levels of obesity. Now, sugar in general, when we have too much of it, immediately gets stored as fat in general. But fructose in particular gets stored around the liver, and that's how it's impairing liver function. Really, really important to know and an important distinction. Now, there's two other things that happen that compounds this problem. Is there are two master hormones in the body that have to do with appetite control, and one of them is leptin, and the other is ghrelin. Now, fructose has a very special relationship that isn't helping you out. Number one, leptin is made in fat cells, and leptin is the thing that tells our brain to stop eating. So normally when we eat too much of something or we eat too much sugar in general, then our fat cells produce leptin. Leptin goes to the brain and says, hey, you know what? Stop eating. But what happens with fructose is that doesn't happen. So our brain does not get that message that we should stop eating. That's the first problem. The second problem is that the ghrelin, which is the hormone primarily made in the stomach, is the one that stimulates our appetite. And instead of it suppressing it, what happens is fructose increases the stimulation of ghrelin, which means it stimulates our appetite. So two problems. It's important to know this because this is one of the reasons why we're seeing more issues with sugar than ever before, is because the actual amounts of fruit that we're consuming in our diet has been increasing exponentially decade after decade after decade. If you were like me, you lived through a low-fat craze. For years and years and years, we were always told that the sinisterness of fat. And what I'm going to tell you today, that it's not fat that's making us fat, it's sugar. And it's not primarily fat that's causing us to have heart disease and cardiovascular disease and stroke and so on. It is sugar. Sugar has many, many negative effects in the body, in addition to what we talked about. It is incredibly inflammatory, and inflammation is everything when it comes to body health and physiology. This is the thing that we're seeing when it comes to those levels of heart disease and cardiovascular disease. Now, it also creates oxidative stress in the form of premature aging, and we see joint pain. That is one of the things I notice the most when people finish a sugar detox, is they always talk about how little joint pain they have. So I know that we're getting kind of needy right now when it comes to, you know, what are the effects of sugar in the body? But I think it's important to back up and have a great sense of awareness before we go forward. So before we go anywhere, I want to say that sugar is contributing to the high incidence of cancer. Sugar is the primary fuel source for all cancer cells. If they believe that you might have cancer, or they want to check to see if they have cancer, they take a sugar molecule, they will tag it, they will inject it into your body, and then they will use diagnostic imaging to see where those sugar molecules go, because those sugar molecules will go directly to the cancer cells. And because they've been tagged and you can see them on diagnostic imaging, we're able to see where there's cancer formation in cancer cells. I think that's probably one of the most important things to recognize. In order to starve cancer cells, you adopt a low sugar lifestyle. Sugar also suppresses the immunity. It affects a lot of our primary immune cells, and it's an effect that lasts for hours and hours. So if anything, as you finish this webinar tonight, you'll also really be reevaluating your relationship to juice, to name one of the things. Juice is the one thing that we do to be good parents, to give our kids, whether it's sweetened or unsweetened. It's full of natural sugar. It's full of primarily fructose, which is having the effect that we already talked about. Sugar is also a big disruptor of normal digestive processes and entirely affects your hormones. So, okay, that is not all that sugar does, but these are the main things that I want to mention, because as you start to curate a low sugar lifestyle, and as you start to understand the role that sugar is having in your diet, you will start to notice that you feel and function differently than you do. And I want you to have that great understanding of why it is that sugar is actually derailing us the way it is. Okay? All right. So let me get into what you need to know. You know, what are you targeting for? How are we going to go ahead and do this? So here is what you need to know. So I want you to take out your pen and write this down. The target for an adult is that you want to have 40 grams of sugar or less per day. A teenager, you want to have 30 grams of sugar or less per day. And a child, you want to have 20 grams of sugar or less a day, which, by the way, sounds crazy, but it's completely doable. And I'll show you what that means. And for this, you want to count all grams of sugar in everything, including your fruit. But the only thing that I say you don't need to focus a lot on is the sum of the sugar that's naturally occurring in vegetables. Now, I want to also tell you that there are two particular vegetables that we have way too much abundance in our diet, whether we're aware of it or not. And one is potatoes, and the other is corn, and they're very, very high in sugar. So those two vegetables, it's great to be aware of. And what I would say to you is, can you create a lifestyle where we're not eating white potatoes and corn so much? Because actually, I don't know if you know this, but corn products are all through our diet, whether you realize it or not, because high fructose corn syrup is made from corn, and it is also broken down into a number of things. So if you eat any processed food whatsoever, which hopefully we're going to start to do a lot less of, then you're already consuming way too much corn. So that's what you want: 40 grams for adults, 30 for teenagers, 20 grams for children. You can count sugar grams and everything except for that's naturally occurring in your vegetables, okay? Ixnay, white potatoes, and corn as much as possible. So I want to give you a little bit of reality. So we're talking about, you know, kids and teenagers are getting 42 teaspoons of sugar a day. I still can't, that just freaks me out. Children, 38 grams. We're at 27 grams as adults. Where's this all coming from? The 110 grams of sugar, the 170 grams. So if the average teenage boy is having 171 grams of sugar a day, and they're supposed to be at 30, where is this all coming from? Well, we already talked about this. The number one place is beverages. So let me just show you a few things. Now, we all know that a Coca-Cola has a lot of sugar. It's It's sort of a no-brainer. When I talk about this, you're going to say, yeah, like, I know there's tons of sugar in here. Here's the thing. So there's 33 grams of sugar in this can of Coca-Cola. Now, are you also aware that there's 33 grams of sugar in the San Pellegrino? So this is a San Pellegrino that has, I'm showing my 49-year-old eyes as I try to read this, 16% orange juice and 3% blood orange juice. Of course, no preservatives added. This is a sparkling water with a little bit of fruit juice. This is 33 grams. This is 33 grams, okay? That's important to know. But did you also know that this is 33 grams, but this vitamin water is 32 grams? So, you know, this is where we get into trouble. Because when we're savvy and we're thinking we want to make a better choice for ourselves, we may not choose this because we're already super aware of how much sugar's in this. But are we super aware of how much sugar is in this? This is nearly your entire daily intake. This is the entire daily intake for a teenager. So here's the issue, okay? So there's that one, there's that one, there's that one. Now, I know there's lots of Americans on here today. So this is Tim Hortons. So this is a really common thing. And no, I did not have a Tim Hortons only because I don't like it. But this is representing a double coffee. So if you don't know what that is, a double in Canada is considered double cream, double sugar. Now, that's such a smart name. Why? Because we fail to really take into our awareness that as this cup gets taller, it's not 2 sugars and 2 cream. It's 2 sugars and 2 cream in the small one. But as you start to get bigger in here, it starts to actually become a lot more of that. There is a ton of sugar in this. There's not only sugar in the sugar, there's sugar in the cream, right? Lots of sugar in the cream. And as such, this is 26 grams of sugar. So this is a lot of sugar in a day. And the issue is that you would be completely really not unaware, but you wouldn't really be aware of how much is actually going on when we have that. So that's an important one. And the last one I'm going to show you in the beverage department is this. This tiny, teeny little sip of 200 mils is a junior juice. It is an organic, unsweetened apple juice. And what I dislike about it, I get it. It says no sugar added. Everything about this screams healthy. And we give this to our children because we believe it's healthy. So I get that. I'm not shaming anyone on this. I'm trying to point out the fact that this is actually 19 grams of sugar. 19 grams of natural sugar that has no difference in the way that it acts in the body. It is still going to stimulate the liver. The fructose is still going to be broken down there. It's going to affect your leptin. It's going to increase your ghrelin hormone. It's going to affect your brain and your body and your intention and your focus. And it really isn't going to add a lot. Here's the thing about sugar. Sugar is an empty calorie. It doesn't have any vitamins. It doesn't have any nutrients. It doesn't add anything. Yeah, it's a form of energy. But so many of us are sugar burners. We burn sugar for everything, and it's so toxic to our physiology. What I would prefer to see is that we shift that. If we start to decrease our reliance on so much sugar, you will become fat adapted, especially when I give you some of my recommendations today. And further on in my detox is fat adaptation is a superior way for your body to function. And when you are fat adapted, you notice the difference. So here's a really good one. If you did anything for your children, it's just thinking about swapping that out. So I have lots of good recommendations about other things, but I'm going to tell you, so many of us are dehydrated. So if all we did is start to drink water, that would be the great thing. So that's the reality around beverages. I definitely encourage you to take a look at the nutrition fact sheets and pamphlets that they have at Starbucks and Tim Hortons and other places where they have fancy drinks. Easily, the coffee, frappa, whatever's are 60, 70, 80, 90 grams of sugar. It's massive. So that's a really, really important thing. So that's what you want to do. And that's, I think, where our teenagers are getting at it. The other place that I want you to become a super sleuth today is that you want to start looking, and we're going to go over a nutrition fact label, but you want to look at your salad dressings and you want to look at your condiments in general. There is so much sugar in there. And by the way, why is there so much sugar in there? There's so much sugar in there because if we keep adding sugar in there, it does increase flavor and texture, but it also creates that level of addiction. And food manufacturers have a term for that. It's called the bliss point. It's the minimum amount of sugar they need to add to a product so that you are addicted to it. And when you're addicted to it at the level of the brain, you're going to keep coming back for it. So, and by the way, you can unwire your addiction to it. It takes about 7 days or so, totally doable. So the place that you want to do is you want to open up your fridge and you want to look down both sides of the doors, or whatever kind of fridge that you have. It's the ketchup, it's the barbecue sauce, it's the condiments, all of those kinds of things, okay? We also want to be aware of our fruit. Now, fruit is not categorically bad. I know I talked about fructose, and mainly I was talking about high fructose corn syrup, but it is important to be aware of how much fruit. When kids are when kids are sugar addicted, which most kids are, given that the average kid is having 38 teaspoons of sugar a day, then we know that they are also going to be wanting more and more fruit. It adds to that. So here's the thing to be aware of. I just want to give you a couple of examples of different fruit. There is low sugar fruit and there's high sugar fruit. So the low sugar fruits to be aware of are things like raspberries. A cup of raspberries is 4 grams of sugar. And just so you're aware, 4 grams is 1 teaspoon. So if 40 grams a day for an adult is what you're shooting for, 4 grams from raspberries is not a big deal. Having said that, a cup of blackberries or a cup of strawberries is 7 grams of sugar. Also totally fine. Now, as you start to get into some of the other ones, you'll start to see the numbers go up. Blueberries, a cup is 15 grams, a banana, 17 grams, and also be super, super aware of dried fruit. So dates and dried fruit are something you'll see in your trail mix. They're also, what we use for a lot of sort of health-oriented desserts, and people will put them in their smoothies, but recognize that even a cup of dates is 93 grams of sugar. So there's a big difference between grapes and plums and things like, or melons rather, and also versus having some of the smaller ones like the blueberries, which is on its way down to blackberries, strawberries, and raspberries. That's what I was trying to say. So it's not that you're not going to eat fruit, not at all. I have no audio, although it says it's on. Oh, Tara, I'm sorry. I'm just seeing this. It says it has no, everybody else can hear me. Is that true? Can you just make sure that I'm aware of that? And Tara, I would say, hold on here. Let me just check. You can hear Mike Lannon. Okay, so everybody else can hear me. Thank you. This is the thing about it. So Tara, I'm not really sure what's going on there. Maybe try clicking out and coming back in or restarting your computer, but I guarantee when you get your replay tomorrow, you'll be able to hear the audio, okay? So I just saw that out of the corner of my eye. So that's all I want to say about fruit. I have a huge fruit journal in my detox, and you can Google it. All this information is not a problem to find, but just be aware that there's a big difference. Because if you're starting your day with a fruit smoothie and you're putting all sorts of milk and yogurt, and maybe you're putting in some fruit and all these different things, you may end up with a fruit smoothie that's really a sugar bomb. So it's important to be aware. And especially when you blend things, you also reduce the fiber content down to the point where now it's really going to spike your blood sugar. And it's that spiking of the blood sugar that's also really, really toxic for the body. Okay, so that's the sugar issue. Now, I just want to give you a little bit of a reality check when it comes to breakfasts. And for some people, you might have heard this before. So I'm going to tell you about my typical breakfast when I was growing up. And I want you to know, Mom, if you're on here, that I don't blame you. Okay, I'm just kidding. But this was actually a very typical thing that we had at our house. There were no Fruit Loops at our house for breakfast. We had things like Shreddies, because Shreddies would kind of be considered to be one of the, the whole grain forms of cereal in the morning. Okay, so here we go. 1 cup of orange juice, unsweetened orange juice, 1.5 cups of Shreddies, a cup of milk, and a medium banana. So having a cup of orange juice, and then you're just having 1.5 cups of Shreddies with milk, and then you're having a banana on top. That would be considered on many levels to be quite a healthy breakfast. Now the issue with that is that's actually 65 grams of sugar. This is equivalent to 16.25 teaspoons of sugar. Having said that, I would say that a lot of people these days now also eat things like 6 ounces of yogurt, whether it's low fat or not, half a cup of blueberries, because blueberries have lots of heart healthy attributes to them, half a banana, lots of potassium in there, half a cup of granola, and 12-ounce coffee with milk. That comes out at 48 grams of sugar. So remember that when we are targeting for 40 grams in an entire day, starting our day off with 65 grams from the cereal, milk, and banana, or having almost like a parfait where you're having yogurt with some fruit and some granola, we are already spiking our blood sugar to high, high levels. Now, keep in mind, if you were to have 2 poached eggs with half an avocado full of all sorts of great healthy fat, half a beefsteak tomato, 2 slices of bacon, and I recommend that you source your bacon well. You get no nitrate or low nitrate. And again, 12 ounces of coffee with a bit of milk. That comes out at under 6 grams of sugar. So that's equivalent to 1.5 teaspoons. Starting your day off with bacon and eggs and avocado and tomato with a cup of coffee, if you so choose, is going to get you far. There's healthy fat, there is protein in there, there is carbohydrate. This is the kind of breakfast that's actually going to stretch you out, and it's going to stabilize your blood sugar. And then I think it's an important consideration, because in our hype to make everything low fat, we increase the sugar. Not you and I, but that's what happened in food manufacturing. And as a result, we start off our day trying to make healthy choices for breakfast, and we don't realize how much it's destabilizing us. So just having a new awareness, a new way of looking at the way that we're fueling ourselves is really an important part to being able to curate some changes. So I would definitely recommend, that you start looking at, what you're eating for breakfast. And what I found is if you start off a breakfast with low sugar, whole food, low sugar, you definitely start off your day the way you want to. And you will feel like you're satisfied and full, and your brain will feel fantastic, and you'll have the energy that you're looking for. Okay? So that's the important part in that. Now, I want you to know, if you know what your target is, and we're at 8:41, so I'm going to try and end this for you soon. If you know what amount you're supposed to have, I think it's really important to also know how to accurately read a label. Now, every single, where is it now? Oh, I don't see it here, so I'm just going to explain it to you. Every single product that you buy in North America is going to have a nutrition fact label. And I know you can't see that because there's a glare, but I know you probably recognize this. There's 2 things that are on every single label in Canada. There's an ingredient list. The first ingredient that you see will be the one that's in the highest amount, all right? And the second thing you'll see is a nutrition fact label. The 2 things I always want you to focus on when you look at a nutrition fact label is the amount of sugar grams and the serving size. So the sugar grams are going to be listed further down the nutrition fact label. It will be under the amount of carbohydrates. I don't count carbohydrates, I count sugar grams. So the reason why you also want to be aware of the serving size is the amounts of sugar that they have listed here is in that amount of serving size. And food manufacturers are really good at this, because if they have a higher sugar product, what they'll do is they'll decrease the serving size so that for the person who just glances and goes, oh, this only has 3 grams of sugar, which by the way, this has more than 3 grams of sugar. But if it said 3 grams of sugar and then you look up and the serving size was, I don't know, 1/4 cup, and you had a cup of it, you would need to times that a sugar amount by 4. So recognizing that this is an important thing to get right, because if you are not calculating your sugar grams properly, obviously you're not going to have a very good awareness. The other thing I'm going to say is just to keep in mind, so you have a good sense of awareness, that 4 grams is 1 teaspoon of sugar. So when you're counting, when you're looking for 40 grams in a day, you're counting it again in everything you eat, including fruit, but not so much focusing on some of the sugar that's naturally occurring in your vegetables. Not a big deal, okay? You want to stick to whole foods. Now, you won't find a nutrition fact label on whole foods. They don't need one because that's their ingredient. So whether you're talking about lettuce or you're talking about, anything from a sweet potato to whatever, a carrot, all of those things, of course, are the kinds of food that your body it's really meant to work on. So what I don't want you to do is start to think about how can you make substitutions that are not actually food. So even though for the purposes of tracking your sugar grams, you look at a nutrition fact label, I also always want you to check the ingredients. Because if there is a whole pile of things in there that you can't pronounce, that's a good sign that that probably isn't the kind of food that you want to put in your body. What you don't want to do is trade one problem for something else. The body works on whole food. It's what it knows what to do with. And when we start giving it the kind of food that isn't actually real, synthesized in a lab, somehow genetically modified, altered with, preservatives and food dye and colorings, we are no longer staying in the realm of food. We are out now creating a chemical experiment inside of our bodies. So what I would say to you is it's just as important to make a low sugar lifestyle as it is to make a clean eating lifestyle, okay? I know that's not always easy. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. So you want to stick to whole foods. You want to keep your sugar grams down, and you want to also make sure that you are not using artificial sugars. So here is the deal about sugars. So we have natural sugars. These are the things that you are finding when you talk about honey, and you'll see it in maple sugar, and it's in dates and those kinds of things. Those are important considerations. They're not better for you in terms of they are still going to connect you to that sugar addiction. They are still going to increase your blood sugar. They are still going to trigger constant insulin release and storage in your fat cells, and they can have the potentially toxic effect on the brain if we're having too much of it. So natural sugar or sugar, table sugar, those two things are doing the same thing. Now, I guess if you're having sugar, in other words, it's not a no sugar lifestyle I'm asking you to create, it's a low sugar lifestyle. So if you are having sugar, yes, go towards natural sugar. That's an important part of it. But just recognize they're not freebies. They have a consequence on the body, and it's important to keep them in check. Okay, so I hope that creates some clarity around it. The other thing I want to say is please, please, please never, ever, ever, and if you are, please stop putting artificial sugars in your body. There's a million of them, but obviously aspartame, sucralose, all of those kinds of artificial sugars, they aren't food. They are chemicals, and your body doesn't know what to do with them. And the breakdown products on average are toxic for you. There are no safe levels. These are not things that your body knows what to do with it. They're disrupting your hormones. They're overloading your kidneys and your liver, and the breakdown products are absolutely toxic, and they are addictive. So the sooner you can start to reduce them out and get them out of your diet, and believe me, they are messing with your hunger levels. So they are something that's actually making you hungrier with time. So I want you to nix artificial sugars. Now, there is one thing that I'm going to talk about. Everyone always brings it up. It's stevia. Now, stevia is not an artificial sugar. It's actually an herb. You can get it in two forms, powdered and liquid. Super, super sweet, 200 times sweeter than regular table sugar. So some people don't like it because there's a little bit of a unique taste to it, but it's an option for you. I don't use it a lot. And here's the thing, as you start to decrease the amount of sugar in your diet, you will start to become very attuned to it. And that's the wonderful thing about detoxing sugar out of your lifestyle, is the things that you thought tasted great before, when you unhinge that addiction and you drop it down, you'll have sugar and you'll be like, whoa, what the, that is like the sweetest thing I've ever had. And that's because your tolerance will have decreased down. And it's a wonderful thing, because all of a sudden that super sweet stuff that you once thought tasted really good no longer is great for you. So Paula, you asked me about sugar alcohols like xylitol. I'm not a big fan of them personally. The research is sort of mixed on them. So for some people, they're major digestion disruptors. I don't think that they're net positive for you. Maybe not as bad as aspartame and so on, but I would encourage you also to decrease that. Not great for a lot of people. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah, and so I try and give you as many options as you go through the detox to be able to swap things out. But recognize you're not going to have to make those swaps for long, because you're not going to want the sugar like you did before. Okay? So that's the deal with whole foods, artificial sugars, and so on. All right. I'm on page 13. I actually have notes. This is like unprecedented for me. Okay, so I want to give you quick start strategies. You have the awareness, you understand how to track sugar grams, you know the effect that it's having in the body, you know some of the places that are most dangerous, the beverages, the condiments, the sauces, the breads, the things that break down into sugar like that, all those grains. There's two aspects to quick start strategies, and I almost think mindset is as important as actually action-oriented strategies. I think really being strong on your why you're doing something, why it's important to you, what you're wanting to achieve from it is really, really important, because motivation is a depletable resource, right? You can find yourself really, really wanting to do something, but then when the cravings start to increase because you're withdrawing from the sugar initially, you're going to have a really hard time, resisting. So that's where a lot of times support and accountability is really important, but just being really clear on what's important for you. So the mindset's really important. And that comes from this. It comes from learning things, attending webinars and reading, and just keeping on increasing your level of knowledge, reading your labels, just increasing your awareness, becoming really conscious to how much sugar you're actually taking in. I think that's a really big part of any strategy when it comes to being able to curate a low sugar lifestyle for yourself. So increasing your consciousness, increasing your awareness, keep reading your labels, understanding the effect that sugar is having in your body, and being truthful with yourself. I have to tell you that mindset work is one of the things I think is most beneficial when you're taking on this lifestyle. And that's because we have a tendency to be hard on ourselves. When we are decreasing sugar out of our lifestyle, we're typically creating a new relationship with food and beverages for that matter. And these are habits that we've ingrained, maybe even for decades. And when we take on a new lifestyle, sometimes we can be tricky on ourselves. We can be downright hard. We can be mean to ourselves. So the idea of the whole thing is really not to create a level of perfection. It's just to create improvement. Wherever you are right now, if you decreased your level of sugar by 20%, do you know how further ahead you would be than you are right now? And that's where it starts. Now, I think that it's really important to be truthful with yourself in things like knowing your own tendencies. Now, I know my tendencies, and I will flat out tell you, I do. I live a low sugar lifestyle, but I've also been doing it for years. And I'm telling you, I didn't always live the lifestyle that I do right now. And as I learn more, I temper my lifestyle to meet that, according to research and according to the things that work for me and whatever. And I know things like, for me, toast. I think toast is like nectar of the gods. I think it absolutely tastes absolutely delicious. I love it beyond belief. And I know that about myself. To me, bread, toast, it's like a gateway drug. And I know that, even though the bread that I might bring into this house on occasion has no sugar actually listed on the nutrition fact label, I also know that bread turns into sugar quickly. It might have high fiber in it, that's great, but it still turns into sugar. And I know that if I allow bread to come into the house, for me, I'm not talking about you, but for me, I just start jonesing for it. It's like it swings open the gate of sugar addiction. So I just know myself, and I just don't do that. And so I'm asking you, what do you know about yourself? There are things that you already know are sticky points for you, or they're the places that you go when you want to have sugar. Now, that's what I would say. Be truthful with yourself. And what do you know? I personally recommend this. If you are truly wanting to decrease the amount of sugar that you have in your life, then you need to decrease the amount of sugar that's living in your life. And that means that you may need to take a Rubbermaid to the kitchen and start walking around your kitchen and putting things that are high susceptibility. Because I'm telling you, when that willpower depletes, and maybe at the beginning when your withdrawal symptoms are starting to increase, you are going to know exactly what cupboard, what part and whereabouts any of those sugar sources are. So, you know, at the very least, you can take it slightly out of sight, even if it's not out of mind. And I think that's an important part, setting yourself up with a high degree of probability of success right from the beginning. And, you know, if you misstep, you misstep. No big deal. You make a different choice and you go forward at the next opportunity, the next meal, the next time you make a food choice or a beverage choice. It doesn't have to be next week, next month, next season. It can be the next opportunity. So it's really about learning how to turn yourself around in a short period of time. So to unwire your sugar addiction, that chemical hardwire addiction that has to do with the reaction in the reward center of the brain with serotonin and dopamine, you can unwire that. We know we can. And how that works is by decreasing the sugar in your diet. I know, sounds so easy, right? But now that you start to curate some changes, and I'll give you some recommendations, once you start doing that, you are already unwiring that. Now, that comes possibly with a whole host of sugar withdrawal symptoms, depending on how much sugar you've already been consuming. So I'm going to give you ways to decrease your cravings, and all of it comes down to stabilizing your blood sugar. It's really, really, really important to stabilize your blood sugar. Really at all times, it's what makes us happy. And when our sugars are going like this and like this and like this and like this in our diet, it's what makes us hangry. It's up there, insulin secreted, it drops down, then we're craving and it's back up. You know that, we've all had it. So what you want to do is you want to create this. And the two things that you can put in your diet and lifestyle that help do that are protein and fat. Now, I'm not talking about having fat like the kind of fat that you get in the French fry truck. I'm talking about healthy fat. So let me tell you examples of healthy fat, because this is probably the biggest thing that happens in the detox, is that we have to rewire brain-wise our connection with what fat means. And we remember that our body requires healthy fat, not unhealthy fat, healthy fat, and that it's actually supportive, stabilizing, and healthy for the brain and the body and the hormones and digestion and you name it, to have healthy levels of fat in your diet. Healthy levels of fat look like coconut oil, avocados, avocado oil, pumpkin seed oil, extra virgin olive oil, raw nuts and seeds, even grass-fed butter has lots of healthy fat in it. Ghee, which is clarified butter. You see it in a lot of Indian cooking. I use it a lot. It's delicious. Unsweetened seed and nut butter. So I'm not talking about peanut butter specifically, because peanut's not really a nut. It's not that it's not really nut. It's not a nut. But using any form of cashew, pumpkin seed, almonds, you name it, hemp, sunflower seeds, all of those are great forms of protein. And of course, of fat. They're also great forms of there is protein in there as well, but all of those kinds of things are the kind of fats that you want to have in your diet. You'll find them really, really supportive. Fat is tasty, it's very satisfying, and so having adequate amounts in it in your diet really, really help with withdrawal symptoms, but they also help you become fat adapted. Because as you decrease the amount of sugar in your diet down to healthy levels, then your body is going to start to use fat as one of your forms of energy, and your body is going to feel fantastic when you do that. Now, the healthy protein that you're looking for is any form of healthy, lean kinds of cuts and well-sourced cuts of protein. Animal sources, of course, whether it's red meat or chicken, wild fish, no problem. Healthy deli meat, and I don't mean just regular deli meat, but organic or low nitrate, no nitrate, grilled or roasted meats, anything like that. Also, I use non-dairy yogurts. Look for the ones that aren't sweetened or very low sweet. Hard-boiled eggs are a big one. Jerky, but not the kind of jerky you get at the gas station, the healthy jerky, and even goat or sheep cheese. Now, if you use dairy products, I'm not a big proponent, but if you do, then of course you can use a little bit of cheese, or you can use a little bit of dairy and so on. And just like all things, all you need to do is track your sugar grams for things that might have sugar in it. But a lot of this healthy fat and healthy protein has very little to no sugar in it. And these are the things that are going to help stabilize. your blood sugar. And this is what's going to feel good for you. And it's also going to make you not be hungry, which is really an important part of it. You, of course, are going to massively increase your level of whole foods. And that's where all of your vegetables come into play. You want to eat the colors of the rainbow. And you want to think about minimizing so many potatoes and so much corn, of course. Okay, so those are two things that really help decrease sugar withdrawal and decrease your cravings. If you're really having a hard time with it, also keep in mind it's super important to make sure you're getting enough hydration. So 2 to 3 liters of water a day is really important. If you dislike water, it's probably because you're too attuned to sugar, right? And water just tastes gross to you. And as you start to decrease the sugar and your withdrawals start to decrease, you'll find you actually have a craving for water. It may help to start infusing them with some frozen berries or maybe some cucumber slices or mint, things like that, lemon juice. That always helps. Of course, you can also have things like tea lattes, black, tea, herbal tea, coffee. There actually is no sugar in any of those. They have caffeine, they're not as hydrating, but just recognize you can still have them in a low sugar lifestyle. You want to make sure that you're getting 2 to 3 liters of water a day. That will help you really detox the symptoms. Epsom salt baths help. Change your routine. If you have sugar withdrawals, or you find you're really jonesing for sugar at certain times a day, try and find something else to do at those times. They will pass. They do go away within a few days, but you can feel pretty yucky. So reach out to me. Just really the biggest thing I would say is a lot of people who are wanting to drop sugar in their diet also want to lose weight. Recognize when you are detoxing sugar from your system initially, please do not calorie restrict. Don't diet. Don't count calories, because if you decrease the amount of intake, you will find that you are upset. Now is not the time to actually calorie restrict. I will tell you, in all honesty, if you curate a low sugar lifestyle, the pounds will start to drop anyways. But calorie restricting at the time that you're actually detoxing in the first 7 to 10 days, highly don't recommend it. Okay, so that's how you can unwire the sugar addiction and really decrease your withdrawal symptoms if you have them at all. Not everybody has them. All right, okay, so how do you start to curate this? So wherever you're coming in from right now, that's where you are, and it's perfect. And if all of this just seems so new to you, I will say this: go easy on yourself. Start where you are. A beginner's mind is an open mind. So I would say, this is all available to you. It's just a matter of starting to put one foot in front of the other and starting to become aware. The one thing that you can do that will make a big difference for you is meal plan. This is how it goes for me. I don't plan every single meal that I eat, but I plan for the times when I'm busiest. If you don't have the right foods in your house, it's really hard to do this. So you want to have some forward thinking. You want to start bringing in the foods that you're going to be able to consume. So I say plan once, prep once, and eat 2 to 3 times. I plan my meals on a Thursday. On Thursday, I look ahead. I only meal plan from Monday through Thursday. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And granted, it's probably easier for me because I've been doing this for a long time, but I only do those days. Those are my busy days. Friday, I can figure it out. But Monday through Thursday, the kids and I'm working, they're in school, we're all working, we're all busy. And I want to make sure that we have the things around us that I want to eat. I would say the same for you. I go through, I create a plan, I write it out on a calendar that everyone can see. I take a picture so it's in my phone. I make a grocery list, and on Friday or Saturday, I will go get all the groceries that I need. Sunday, for me, I spend some time prepping. I'll make a big salad, a dry salad. I don't put dressing on it. I will roast some vegetables. I'll maybe make a soup. Whatever I'm doing, I just do some bulk cooking. That is the key to this. It makes it really, really easy. If you can make 1 chicken breast, why can't you make 10 chicken breasts? If you can roast 1 chicken, why don't you roast 2 chickens? Just start to forward think so that you're not starting every meal from scratch. So that every meal you're not opening the fridge and be like, here I am, what am I gonna make? This meal can repurpose into next meal. And this dinner can become your lunch the next day. Okay, so make sure you have enough you know, things like thermoses and canisters and things that people can take with them. You want to treat yourself like a toddler. Every time you leave the house, you want to have water and snacks with you, things that are low sugar, friendly, and compliant. Why? Because at the beginning, you're not going to sure how to feed yourself when you're out and about. You know, knowing how to entertain and knowing how to travel in a low sugar lifestyle and knowing how to eat out, those are kind of advanced concepts. Those are things that we teach in the detox, a little beyond what we're doing tonight, but suffice to say, you want to be like when you might have had toddlers if you had children. So take food with you so it's easy for you. And there's all sorts of things that you can easily do, whether even if it's just, you know, a low sugar granola bar, like a Kind bar, one of the ones that 5 grams or 4 grams of sugar, or maybe you have raw veggies with you, or you have a hard-boiled egg, you name it, those kinds of things. So you want to do that. Now, how do you start if you've never done anything like this? Start with the next meal. I just want you to nail 1 meal a day. If that's where you need to start, that's what I'm recommending for you. So instead of thinking, oh my gosh, every single day this week, I'm gonna have to be perfect at all these meals, how about you just start with 1 meal? How about you get your breakfast to be really low sugar, whole food compliant, tasty, great, falls within the parameters of eating in a low sugar lifestyle, and nailing that for a whole week, maybe for a full 2 weeks. That's what you do. Everyone in the house, or maybe just yourself, because that's important, you create that for yourself. When that feels comfortable, when that feels cozy, then you take on a second meal. And maybe the second meal is your lunch, and you just get into the habit of bringing leftovers. So sometimes it's just a matter of increasing your consciousness around what you're doing at dinner time so that you're just making more of everything that you make at dinner so that you can repurpose it the next day. So those are some of my quick start strategies. I know that we don't have enough time to go into the lengthiness of it all, but that is, in a nutshell, the sugar dilemma. So the information that it's going to take, what I want you to know is you can curate a low sugar lifestyle. 100%. It's totally doable. And I know that I have a lot of my repeat detoxers on the panel today, and they can put their hands up and say, because it's possible. And at the beginning, it can be overwhelming. So whether or not you join my detox, I have a few offers for you so that you can take part in the low sugar lifestyle in multiple different ways. But I want you to know it's a game changer, and it's doable, and it's something that's going to pay you back in spades a million times over. So I want to say thank you, first of all, for attending, but I also want to let you know that there's a few options. Tonight, when this detox ends, the cart and registration opens for my sugar detox, my granddaddy deep dive 6-week 40-day program. I love it. This is my thing. It starts October 24th, and I have early bird discount up to and including October 17th. So it's starting on the 24th. If you're Canadian, I sandwiched it after Thanksgiving and before Christmas. You're welcome. And this program is fully led by me and some other guest experts. You will get meal plans. You will go ahead and get recipe books. There'll be live webinars. There will be pre-recorded information. You'll get emails twice a week. You'll get tons and tons of recipes. I have a whole bunch of new content coming your way for those people who have done it in the past and want to continue. But probably the most important thing it does have is it has accountability and support. And sometimes I think that's the most important thing. It's the person who's willing to link arms with you, even if it's on digital media, and say, I've been there, I understand, try this, I know how it is. I come on several times a day. When I get on there, I find half of the other detoxers have answered the question, provided the support, or in some way linked arms with that person. I feel like it makes a big difference. So whether you're that kind of person that likes to be on a private Facebook page and be active, or you just want to stand in the background and you want to take part, that's fine. But this one is the one that's going to create the mentorship and accountability and just really get you to the other side. So it starts as a sugar detox and it ends as you being able to develop a low sugar lifestyle for yourself. So I definitely encourage you to join me and the people who are going to be registering. Again, drlaurafoster.com/sugar detox. You'll get a link in your email tomorrow. Registration opens tonight. Early bird discount goes through until October 17th, and we start on October 24th. Okay, so that's that. And here's a cute little picture of my kids who also live a low sugar lifestyle. Now, if you're not sure, or you also want to have some added fun, I am also offering a 4-day free challenge, sugar challenge. Yep, next week before Canadian Thanksgiving, October 1st to 4th. I'm going to add you to my Sugar Detox community page, which is a private page. You're going to get a downloadable e-guide full of all sorts of nutrition. I'm going to conduct a Facebook Live every day that week, and you're going to get tons of information. So it's not the full detox, but it's an opportunity for you to start to get a kickstart on this and feel what it feels like to have extra information and a whole lot of support. So if you're interested in that, I'd say absolutely, I'm going all out on this. And you will also get a link to that in the email that you open up tomorrow morning. So I think that's it. Let me just take a look around. Sure is. So it's 9:10. I want to say thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm super excited that so many people are interested in making such a big difference. And I want to say thank you and have a great evening. And hopefully I will see you in the challenge and in the detox. All right. Have a great night.